Hey guys, so I'm going to go over a doubles strategy video here today, mostly for our USTA Coronado leagues and our high school players, but anyone else who can get value out of it, I hope you enjoy it. So the first thing to understand is the concept of doubles is just like volleyball. If you're the front player, you are the spiker. You're the player that's looking to be very aggressive up at the net and get involved in the middle. And if you're the back player, you're the setter. So it's really important in doubles that you understand this concept and how it relates to your strategy and your positioning. So there's lots of different ways to set up the front player. The first two opportunities are the serve and the return. The way that you hit those strokes can influence the opponent into hitting cross court, which is really what you want to do if you're looking to get your net player to poach. You can play with pace, you can limit their angle, you can increase angle, and you can play with different heights and spins. But it's always a team game, and I think that's something that people who play a lot of singles struggle with. But it's important to recognize that when the front player looks bad, it's the back player's fault, and it really is teamwork. So the earlier that you understand this concept, the better that you're going to be playing doubles. So let's talk about serving. Number one, primary patterns in doubles is to serve to the tee in the body, and the reason for this is that it limits the angle and it gives your net player the best chance of getting the third ball of the rally, which is the return. We don't want to give the returner slow, wide serves, so especially on second serves, because it allows them to hit to the alleys a little bit easier. And the other thing is to remember that the better your partner's serve is, the closer you want to stand to the net and to the middle, because you can influence that returner to try and pull their return a little bit wider, and maybe they'll make more errors. But you're going to see this in some of these points here where the server is jamming or going to the tee, and the net player, their partner, is right away looking to take the middle. And obviously, these are high quality serves, but using a serve like the tee or the body to limit the returner's angle can have the same effect. So it's really important that you make sure that you are thinking about the serve and the return like that. The serve is the first and best chance to set up your partner. So you want to make sure you're using that correctly. So the next thing is the net player's first chance to poach is going to be on a first serve return. So if your partner is serving and they have a first serve and your opponent is returning right here, they're most likely going to be hitting their return cross court, which means the net player here has a great opportunity to poach. The better the serve, like I said, the more often this returner here is going to have to return cross court, and that net player can predict that. You're going to see that in this video. So, that's something that you always want to keep in mind, is that a lot of times we wait for the rally to get going before we start to look to poach, and you can do this right off the bat. So the next part is changing return positions. So when you are facing a first serve, it's very different to what you are looking for when you're facing a second serve. First serve, you're going to be much more defensive because you want to make sure you make it in play. And what you'll see in this next clip is you're going to see the returners start two back because they don't want to give the server's partner a target up at the net. So this allows them to be a little more defensive with that first serve return. And then what you'll see is a big shift when it comes to the second serve return position. They're going to step up inside the court and look to dictate. So this really keeps the pressure on the server. And you'll see that here. So here's a first serve miss, and you're going to see there's a change of position. So make sure you are changing positions between your first and second serve. So keep pressure on the opponent and remind you of what your goal is when you're returning. It's to make first serve returns and to attack second serves. So when you're returning, when is your first chance to poach? It's going to be when your partner hits a second serve return. You'll see that in this next clip. There's a second serve. The returner puts it at the feet of the server, and the net player poaches right away. So you've got to be ready to go. Doubles is a quick, fast game. The net player has a role, and they must be ready to get right involved, especially in the middle and especially off a good ball like that return. So it's something to be aware of. That's your first chance to poach. Positional. So a lot of players, and you'll see this at USTA level, also high school level, is they get beaten once down the alley, or they're worried about the alley and they end up covering more court than they need to. Give up half of the alley. This will help you maybe one of the most important things in your positioning. It's very hard to hit down half the alley. I mean, just try it. Have somebody feed you balls. See if you can hit them consistently down half an alley. It's not going to happen. So make sure that you're giving your opponent a little bit of bait to go down that alley. And especially if your partner is hitting a quality ball cross court, it's going to be even harder. So this is going to make you more of a threat in the middle, and it's going to get you involved. So make sure it's not singles play. It's you're giving up half the alley. You're looking to influence the middle, and anything that does go down the alley, too good. Clap your opponent's great shot. This is very common. This is how typically on the left over here, how people view the doubles court. They split it in half, and they think of the right side as the baseliners side over here, and the left side as the net players. And you'll find that this net player, if they think of the court like this, they'll be very reluctant to cross that line. It's like an imaginary barrier. But really, this line is only here to divide the service box. Once the serve is in play, it doesn't exist anymore. And so what you need to start to think about is your positioning more like this image over here. So that any ball that's through this airspace through the middle can still be influenced by either net player. And what you see at high level doubles is you'll see this corridor between both net players is very, very small. And that's because the quality of the exchange between these two players is high. And typically in a USTA, a lower level, or maybe a lower level high school match, the net players are further into the corner of over here, protecting the alley and the lob. And that's why these rallies tend to go longer, because there's no influence from the net player. So make sure that you consider thinking about dividing the court more like a sandwich, with the front player covering the front part and the back player helping out in the lobs and the wide balls. But that will help you a lot. So staggered position at the net. So this is something that when you both come to the net, when you are a setter at the back of the court and you want to become a spiker, you come up to the front of the net, either on an approach shot or a serve and volley, but we should have one player slightly in front of the other. And the reason for that is that we know who's going to take the middle. You're going to see the front player is going to take the middle ball, and the back player is going to cover the lob. And so basically, if you are cross court from the ball, if I go back to the last slide, can I do that? Let's see. If I go back to the last slide here, and this standard positioning is naturally staggered. When you are cross court from the ball, you're the player that's further back. So if the ball was on this side of the court where my red dot is, it would be easily struck through the middle, and it would be easily lobbed cross court. And by being in proper staggered, you can imagine these two players at the net. We know that this front player is going to take that middle ball, and the back player is going to help out with the lob that goes over the top. So staggered position when you're both at net is very, very important. So we're going to have a look at a few points here where the returning team starts two back, and this is more of a solution if your opponent has a really great serve or you're really struggling on return. But you can see the return can be more defensive because there's no net player that's going to get killed on the next one. So even though they lost the point, that was a great way to get into the point. And you see this a lot nowadays where players have massive serves and they prefer to stay back, at least for the first ball anyway. So let's talk about pinching the middle. So this is what happens when either you instigate a lob or your opponents instigate a lob and they force a switch. And you'll see that in this point here where there's going to be Federer will come up to the net and net players will face each other, baseliners will face each other. And you'll see Kevin Anderson moving in and out of the middle here, looking to poach. So you must be looking to take the center away, as you'll see a Kevin on the next ball do, and get involved. Often players will hang out way over to the side and they won't be able to get the ball. So make sure you're pinching the center just like Kevin Anderson does in this one. Now, he's got great reach, but he's all over the net, so it makes a big difference. He's taking the middle of the net away. Okay, so when should you poach? This is a really good question. And often I've found players watch the ball only and they try and take their cues from the ball. And if you're just watching the ball, it's already too late. You need to start to read your opponent. Anytime the opponent on the baseline in front of you is uncomfortable, you should have an inkling that they're going to probably go cross court because that's the safer shot. So you should always look to read your opponent, or you should plan poachers. Or even when you're up in the score, sometimes you just will randomly decide, I'm going to do this because it's 40 love and I want to throw something else in there. But the net player is always looking at the opponent, and if they see a hint that they're uncomfortable or jammed or reaching, they're looking for that ball over the middle. And you can see, even though some of these are planned poachers off the serve, this is how it works, even within a rally. So make sure you read the opponent, not the ball. And when do you watch the line? So you watch the line when your opponent is comfortable. So it's in contrast from when they're uncomfortable and they're more likely to go cross court. When they're comfortable, they have options. When they have options, they're more likely to pull the trigger down the line. So two things that you want to watch for is when they're comfortable, also when they're moving forward. If you see a baseline player moving forward to a short ball and that short ball is above the net, you've got to watch the line a little bit more. Also, when the ball is easy and wide. So a lot of players will go, a little bit too close to the middle or to the net when the ball gets a bit wider, and that's just an increase of angle for that player to hit. So they're able to get to both alleys. So you got to watch the alley a little bit more there. But so make sure that you understand that both players are a little bit responsible for when the net player gets beaten down the line. When the net player is beaten down the line, number one, the baseline player has hit a pretty poor ball in order for the opponent to hit it down the line, but also the net player hasn't recognized that it's easy enough for them to do that. So make sure that you're both responsible for that and you're not blaming each other. But you're going to see this in some clips. You'll see this one here. She's moving forward and she goes down the line. That's a good option to do that on. This ball is not, because she's moving back and the net player poaches that. So whenever you're moving back, it's a little bit harder to go down the line. This is another one moving forward high above the net, and that's a little bit easier to go down the line on. So down the line is definitely a very valid tactic, but you want to use that sparingly and in the right situation. So communication, this is one of the things that singles players don't do typically well, because we're out here talking to ourselves most of the time, and you're so concentrated on your own game that you don't really interact with your partner. You have two brains on the tennis court in doubles, so you want to use them. So there's always three questions that you guys need to talk about on the change of ends. Number one is, how are we winning points? Trying to identify that. How are we losing points? And what do we need to do on the next game? So you've got to make adjustments. So really good teams communicate, and they communicate all the time, whether they're winning or losing. So make sure that you are analyzing your performance as that match goes along. So hopefully that helped you a little bit, and you got some value out of that. I'll upload this to YouTube so you guys can check it out, and hope to see you on the court soon. Good luck.